Hey everyone, it's Zeffy and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'll be going over the really bare basics of revelation cards, considering that I think most people are wondering what to do with revelation cards, especially because, you know, a lot of people recommend not to farm them until you're one to level 70 and 80. And I'll just be going through sort of what you should be looking for, revelation cards wise before that level, because revelation cards actually do provide a very big power boost, especially in endgame content like SOS as well as guild boss battles. But because of the nature of artifact sets in any sort of gacha game and the random rolls and substats and main stats that you get, I don't really recommend farming them because you get better cards or more cards when you get higher up the levels. As I said before, one to level 70 and 80. So if you're around one to level 50 and 60, it's not as efficient to farm those cards and spend your stamina to actually farm those cards. But I do actually have tips for that as well, in case you want to get that little bit of power spike to get that extra damage or that extra score in SOS or guild boss battles. So if you do enjoy this video, definitely don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Definitely helps out the channel a bunch. We just hit 10,000 subscribers and I think we're climbing our way very close to 11,000. So that's very exciting. And it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for the support recently on the videos. And don't forget to join the Gacha Rebels Discord, link in the description as well. Alright, so the basic tips that I'm just going to be running through very quickly is essentially, I've got like my little list here. So when you're doing revelation cards, they do provide a good power boost in terms of just overall damage, because again, you get stats from those cards. And then if you level them up, especially for specific substats that you're getting, crit damage, crit rate, for example, attack multiplier or damage bonus, then obviously you increase your damage, you can increase your HP, all the stuff with additional stats that your character may or may not actually get just because you might be max level, for example, or might be capped at the level. Currently, I'm capped at 60. So in order to get those additional stats to squeak out a little bit more score on the endgame content, then you do need to do a little bit of revelation cards and, dip into that a little bit as well. Now, again, I wouldn't recommend farming them necessarily. Maybe you can do like maybe one farm a day, see what you can get. But you can definitely put on bootleg sets, and I'll give you tips on that as well, of like 3 cost and 4 cost cards, for example, just to get you by. And then also level them up a little bit as well. And I'll talk about all that in a bit as well. So firstly, what I would do with revelation cards if you are starting to get into that zone or get into an area of the game is basically just to go to your character, go to revelations. And essentially what you're looking for is you're just looking for the recommended set. So the recommended sets are down here, so you can see here, and they actually give you recommended set 1 and recommended set 2. And these are actually not too bad whatsoever. So for example, recommended set 1 is most likely the one that you definitely want, and it's the one that will basically enhance your character and is essentially like the best in slot, essentially. Like there's a few caveats with that essentially, but it is basically best in slot. Your recommended set 2, however, is basically the cards that the game pretty much always gives you in terms of like default cards from like doing palaces, for example, or just doing story grinding, mementos grinding, stuff like that. And it's a secondary set that can also work very well, but just keep in mind that recommended set 1 is most likely going to be the best in slot for most of these characters. So the reason why you want to look at the sets instead of just putting on random cards, for example, if you want damage, putting on all the damage cards, for example, is because the sets give you set bonuses. And these set bonuses have a very powerful effect. And as you can see here, for example, with the power set, I can increase my attack by 12% for Joker. It is not it's obviously not the best in terms of this, but it's just an example. But you're really looking for your 2-piece and 4-piece set bonuses, and as you see, I've got 2-piece Ruin as well, increased curse damage, Joker's Curse, increases curse damage by 10%, and it's an easy 10% to get by just putting on 2 cards, and that's pretty much it. But if you look at the recommended set for the best in slot, for example, you can see the 4 set effect as well, or the 4-piece set effect. For the Ruin, increased curse damage to foes with debuffs by 20%, which they'll always have debuffs because they'll be cursed, for example. So you get an instant 10% and 20%. So you get a 30% damage increase on Joker with the 4-piece Ruin set. So that's what you're looking for when you're doing revelation cards, and that is the reason why you don't want to just mix and match random cards. You can, like I just did before, for example, if you don't have all the cards. So for example, I don't have all hindrance cards or ruin cards, which I'll go to in a sec with the mistranslation and stuff. But basically, you can mix and match when you don't have them, but you should be looking for the 4-piece sets, especially, for example, for Joker, because it increases his damage by a lot. And then there's these things called universe cards, or they're called space cards, I believe, in the global translation. But these are basically an additional effect to tying in your sets. So you got your 4-piece sets that are basically your revelation cards, And then you've got the universe card on top of that, which basically does an additional effect on top of that 4-piece. So, and these have a bunch of different ones depending on what set you're actually using. So if we're using the Ruin set, like on Joker, for example, with the Departure card, after defeating a foe, increase the user's attack by 30% for 3 turns. And that is the effect that you will get. So if you have Departure set effects as well as Ruin set effects, you get this Departure universe set effect. Same with Departure plus Abundance. So if you have the Abundance set effect, after attacking a foe, increase party's damage by 8%. And then if you have the Control set effect, when attacking with a skill, decrease main target's defense by 23% for 2 turns, which is actually really, really good. So as you can see, each universe card will have essentially 3 different set effects that you can combine with the universe card. So you can see here we've got Peace, Valor, and Love, and each one of them do different things. And again, in order to maximize your potential with them, you usually want to get your 4-piece set effect with your revelation cards and then combine it with a really, really powerful universe card and see which universe cards gives you sort of the most output for your character. So obviously with DPS characters, you're looking for anything to do with DPS. With your support characters, you could increase, like I think this one with Love, after using a healing skill, increases user's attack by 25%, for example, and some of those sustain your scale of attack. So you can see where you can go and you can see where you can mix and match. But again, if you go to recommended sets, usually they will tell you that this is the one to go for. And then you can kind of see, okay, cool, Departure plus your Hindrance or your Ruin. So, you know, if I have that, I've got 30% curse increase, and then I've got Departure plus Ruin. After defeating foe, I can actually get an additional 30% for 3 turns. So you can essentially have 60% uptime on Joker if you use this complete recommended set that the game recommends you. Now, I know a lot of you have probably already discovered this by now, but we'll be getting onto how to farm these and how to actually get these revelation cards. So there's a number of different ways to do it, but you can actually see that this is called, the set effect is called Ruin, and the actual card itself is called Hindrance. Now, I believe this is a mistranslation or a mistake. I'm not 100% sure, but if you go to your revelation cards, so to farm them, you just go to your metaverse, you go to your realm of repression, and then you go to revelation cards. So as you can see, you've got Hindrance here. So if you're looking for the 4-piece Ruin effect, or if myself or another content creator says, you know, you're looking for the 4-piece Ruin effect, and you go here and you go, okay, well, where the fuck's Ruin? Well, unfortunately, you're just going to have to click in and see to make sure that this is the effect that you want. So this is the Hindrance card and this is the Ruin. I do kind of wish they just made it the same. I don't know why exactly they haven't made it the same, but it is what it is at this point in time. But basically, this is how you farm your revelation cards. You just come in here and you can see the rewards that you get. So the reason why I don't recommend farming them necessarily now, you can do like a couple each day if you really, really want to, if you're like really topped up on mats, for example, is because when you get to the higher levels, especially 1 to level 70, you can start farming at 1 to level 70 and especially at 1 to level 80. You basically just get more of the gold ones, less of the blue ones, and you get more higher tier ones as well. Not necessarily like better ones, because obviously the subsets are random, but you do get more of them. So it's more efficient per stamina to use on your 1 to level 70 farms and 80 farms, for example, rather than your lower level farms. So that's basically the caveat, and that's the reason why I don't tell you to do farming necessarily. But farming one or, you know, because you still get like what, 1 or 2 per farm. So it's like to farm maybe 1 a day, then you could eventually get a good stock up and then exponentially sort of ramp up into the late game. You could do that, but if you really raw stats and stuff and leveling up a character is still more important. So that's how you get revelation cards, sorry. But how do you really get universe cards, right? So universe cards is a little bit more niche, and you kind of have to, the most efficient way that I found at the moment is actually just to do your companio or your guild boss battles. And the reason being is because you can see here that eventually you get these companio coins. Actually, first of all, let's go to the Nightmare Gateway. You actually get rewards for these. So you actually get these when you reach these score tiers per Companio guild boss, which is basically resets every week. You essentially get 4 of these every single week. And these will translate into a space revelation card. It is random, of course, and then you can actually see. And then, these are nightmare catches, gateways, basically. And that's how you sort of get them for free. It is very, very easy to get these scores, especially, if you just have a decently well-built team, it is fairly straightforward. And this is how you get your revelation cards. But you can also go to the exchange shop, the Companio store, and you can get these Companio coins. And, again, these will give you incremental rewards after every single week guild bosses, finish up and then reset. Again, this is weekly as well, so it's not just like a one season, one and done sort of thing. You can actually spend these cards to get these revelation cards as well. And you can get these space cards, you can get these purple ones, and then eventually you'll be able to get gold ones as soon as you hit one level 50. So that's really the only like really good way to farm universe cards at the moment. And I mean, you'll be getting some of them from rewards and all that other stuff as well. But I believe that's really the only good way to do it at the moment. Let me just browse quickly. Yeah, because all the other ones give you revelation cards. So you can get revelation cards from your Velvet shop from doing SOS, for example. So now we've sort of dipped into what you're looking for in rev cards, as well as, you know, how to farm them, where to get them. Basically, now I'm going to tell you all about the substats. So this is another reason why I don't recommend farming these at all, just because your substats as well as your main stats are completely random in this game, just like any other gacha game really. And what you're really looking for in all this is essentially your main stat and your substat. So in each one of the revelation cards, Sun, Moon, Star, and Sky, you will have an opportunity to get certain types of main stats. And these main stats are very important because every time you level up the card, these main stats basically increase, you know, in value. So starting out at level 0 is 1.8. And for example, let me just enhance it by 1 level. I'll show you. So you can see here that your main stat increases by 2.6. Now, the reason why the main stat is important over the substats is because the substats don't always level up when you actually level up the card. So if I level up to, for example, 5, I believe it's every 5 levels, it says auto enhance 1 sub attribute. And then because, you know, it's basically random, you can't exactly gauge which one it's going to be leveling up, for example. So that's why your main stat is most important that you're looking for. And then eventually to grind for perfect gear or like really optimal gear, you will be looking for all your substats that you want. So for example, on Joker, you probably won't be looking for defense, element, accuracy, probably not. You're probably more looking for like crit, damage bonus, penetration, that sort of stuff. And that way, when it does auto enhance a random sub attribute, then you can kind of guarantee that you at least get one of them that you want, rather than getting like defense, for example, which on Joker, like you don't really need anyway. And these substats and everything are random rolls. So as you can see here, for example, this Moon card is like attack multiplier, which is actually pretty decent for a blue card. But if I go here, for example, it's HP recovery. If I go here, it's defense. But then you can see the substats. And I should also mention the more higher tier rarity, the more substats you get. So obviously with golds and sometimes purples as well, you can get up to 4 substats. And that's why, again, you want to farm, you know, the gold cards rather than every single other one, because the blue ones only give you 3 substats. But yeah, as you can see, every single one is different. So there's a lot of defense and attack and stuff like that. And then, you know, you got like HP, defense, SP recovery. This is probably not a good example because I don't have a lot. There's speed there as well. If you're looking to speed tune some of your characters to, you know, your supports to go before your DPSs, for example. This is a whole bunch. But that's basically the basics. You're looking for your main stat first, and then you can throw that on, even if the subsets aren't good, because it'll still give you a very good power increase. But ultimately, you are chasing for that one great main stat and then all the subsets you want. So then when you actually level up the card to max level, you can get as many stats in those critical like substats that you really want as much as possible. So again, for substats, for example, like Joker, you're looking for attack. As you can see here, I've got crit multiplier and crit rate, and I've got defense and attack. I probably wouldn't be looking for defense here. I'm probably looking for like penetration rate, for example. But that's just an example. And then obviously on your healers and stuff like that. So for example, I think I've got one on Marion. You're looking for basically like, you know, SP recovery or HP %, for example, because Marion scales off HP. And you can see what you're sort of looking for. But again, you can just go into the recommended sets and it'll kind of tell you what you need. So now I kind of given you a lot of information. It could be quite overwhelming, but just know that basically wait until you're super high level to farm the cards and then blah, 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 as I said in this video. But basically what you can actually do as well is that all these cards that I've attained are basically not through farming whatsoever. They're just through companion rewards, through the exchange shop, or just through doing palaces, mementos, etc, etc. And what you can actually do, if you want incremental power increases, but you don't necessarily want to spend your stamina, again, you can if you want. You have more than, okay and free to do that. You just go basically revelations, you slap on one of these bootleg sets that I like to call them. Basically, whatever set that you have all 5 of the cards that, is the recommended set, slap that shit on. And then basically you can see essentially that all these ones will give you certain stats, right? So if I go love, for example, I've got HP and HP percent, which is great on Marion because Marion is a HP scaling sustain unit. And I've also got the force set effect, for example. And if I want to increase this HP percent or this flat HP, then I can just enhance it to a certain level. And if I, for example, just enhance it quickly, you can see the HP increases. So even if I just use 5 materials, it basically nearly doubles, more than doubles actually, my HP. So you can see where the sort of the stats and stuff come from. So you can always throw on bootleg sets, like they'll look something like this basically, where you just have a purple and a few maybe random blues and stuff like that. And then if you really want to, you can level them up. And it's okay to level them up, especially if you're looking to get higher scores and stuff like that, because they will give you a significant portion of your stats or increase in stats for your characters. So the level up system in this game, as I said before, you basically just use these crystals and stuff like that, but you can actually also use these rev cards. Now, if you do, for example, level up some of these gray cards or your blue cards, it's not the most efficient way of doing it. You can eventually fuse them in or like use them as enhancement materials for your higher tier cards, but you won't get exactly the amount of EXP that you put into those cards. So even if I put in, like, for example, 100 EXP into the Sun card to get it up to a level because bootleg, blah, blah, and then I get a better Sun card, like a purple one, and I want to infuse this one into that one, you can, but you're not going to get the 100 XP. You're probably going to get like 50 XP or something. Don't quote me on the numbers, but just know that even if you use them for enhancement, they're not going to give you the entire EXP that you dumped into him in the first place back. So just be wary of what you're sort of leveling up. And then I don't personally recommend leveling up gray ones because you'll definitely be able to get blue ones that are better. But if it's necessary, for example, then you can level them a little bit and you will get a little bit of the EXP back. So it's not entirely a waste, but just be careful because these crystals and stuff is another EXP farm material. And then if you have, low on these ones, for example, then you have to farm them as well, which means you have to cost stamina. So you have less stamina to farm revelations. It's the whole gacha system. It is what it is. And that's how it basically works. So yeah, I definitely recommend using your recommended sets, these bootleg sets, to increase power. Because even if I don't put in any of these sets, for example, then I don't get any of these stat increases, right? So if I have 0 revelation cards, then I minus 61, minus 57, minus 395, for example. So, you basically get more stats, and essentially you just want to build up those stats because they eventually equate to like damage, healing, and all that sort of stuff. Alright, so that's pretty much it for revelation cards. I realize it's a little bit of a long-winded video, but I do want to go through just everything to know about revelation cards. Obviously, when you get into the late game and stuff like that, builds and build priorities in terms of revelations is very, very important. But the recommended sets up until that point, at least one to level 70 and 80, which I don't know if anyone's really reached yet. I'm sure probably some people have. You're not really going to be dabbling too much in these. Of course, if you get an absolute cracked card with like every single main stat and subset that you really want, then go for it. Level that shit straight up to 25 because you're not going to get rid of it, right? But just keep in mind, that you'll eventually get better farms as well as better revelation cards in general. So just make sure that you are leveling up and making sure that you are investing into the ones that you really want. So yeah, again, I realize this could be a confusing video for a lot of people who haven't played gacha games before. It basically works the same as artifacts. So definitely leave a comment down below if you are still confused, or just join the Gacha Rebels Discord. We are so helpful in this community. Our community is absolutely amazing. So if you just ask a question, I'm sure someone will give you a very good answer. So once again, thank you for watching the video, everyone. I really appreciate the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.